Okay, so now it's the step 2 of the calculator. Now we need to sort of program the equals button so that it will remember calculations and that kind of stuff. So now when we're dealing with the equals button, we would have to remember what the user pressed last. In other words, if they said this plus that equals, so forth, that would actually need to be remembered. Now I'm going to change my construct a little bit because I need to make it look a bit more professional. So I'm just going to change my layout a little bit. I'm going to keep that off the video. I'm just going to add a couple of buttons and whatnot, and then I'll get back on the video afterwards. Also show you on the, if you go to a panel, you can also put a border on a panel. That can sometimes make it look neater. So if I put a etched border around it, or however you want, you'll see it'll put like a lined border around it to separate it. And you'd also want a bit of a gaps between them, so you can specify inside your actual layouts the gaps you would want between different items. So these buttons, if I think that they're too close together, I can just put them a little bit of a gap, and then it'll actually put a bit of spacing between them. I would probably want the same for my main button panel, which is good question, this panel here. So I would then give it a 10 by 10 just to make it look a bit more spacious so that your interface can look a bit better. But now when the user clicks plus, minus, times, etc., now you're going to choose how you're wanting your display to go. So as they type in, it will display what's happening here, and you could choose how you'd want it then to display the answer, or you want it to collate it, that kind of stuff. But the main thing is you'll need to store what sign they're going to have. So one of the ways you can do this, or what the user is wanting to do with the next value. So one of the ways you can do it is you can actually create a variable for the sign, or for action. So I'm going to call it action. Now I'm going to make it easy with regards to just making action an integer. Now what I mean by that is I'm going to show you firstly how to comment. So if you comment, you go /* enter, and you'll see it'll put a /* and then some space here. Everything that I put in between is considered a comment, which means no users, whoever's using this program won't see this. It doesn't actually, the program doesn't even, it ignores it. This is for the programmer to know. So action values, meaning that I'm going to state there that 1 represents a plus. I'm actually going to say 0 represents plus because we do start on 0. 1 represents a minus, equals a minus, 2, the values can actually equal your signs that you're doing. 3 is equal to times. And you could have more functions in that. But so here we've got 4 values that are happening. So now when the user presses plus, it would be the sign that was previously that action should take place. So now if you look at a calculator, I'm just going to open up one on the screen here. If I put in 200 plus 100, now if I pressed minus, it would perform the plus. So the plus action will be performed, and then it will do the minus next. So you see the answer currently is 300, meaning that the 300 is the current answer. But then when I type in 200 now, that would be what is minus. When I press equals, it would perform it would have done the 200 plus 100 minus 200. And then so it will perform it in the sequence. So we've got to get it to do that. So we've got an answer and we've got a display. Now display is what we are currently showing on the screen, and my answer is the current answer. We could also have, for example, a string that would keep track of, so a display string, or display all actions, which would display all of them. But we would always want to perform the previous action and then deal with that. So now in my default, I'm going to say on display is equal to, you have to, in your constructor, remember this is your constructor, so I'm just going to comment that here. This is my, so there's 2 different ways to do comments. One is with // which is a single line comment, and for a multi-line comment it's /* */. So in my constructor, I'm also going to say my action by default is going to be 0, which is a plus. So now this is going to be a little bit different. So here I've got, okay, the user presses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now what if he presses add, subtract? It's going to do different things. So we're going to delete this now, because it's not going to work the exact same way as it was working. It's going to work slightly different. We're going to think this from the beginning. Now, because of the fact that my action would represent different stuff, I'm going to introduce you to something called parameters. Now, a parameter is where it will be received through it receives information through. So wherever the calling method is, or the calling component is, whatever calls it will send through a value. So for example here, instead of having public void 1, public void 2, I could have a public void number, and in the number I can have int value, meaning that I'm going to be receiving the value through. So I'll do exactly what I did here, but now instead of saying display is equal to display plus 1, display is equal to display plus value, and dot set text. And then what you do is all of these methods here can be replaced all the way up to 0, delete, so it's gone. And now when I call it, I would just go display, sorry, not display, what is it called? Number. So number 1, number 2. So you just send through in the parameter the value you want it to be. So the calling methods, instead of this being 3, I would just go number and I would send through the value 3. I'm just going to complete this, but this would actually send through the value. So the number 1 here gets sent through into the variable value, which then gets added to the display. So instead of, that's the whole point of a parameter, is a calling method can send it through to the other side. So here we're going to go number, and we're going to say now 4, and so forth. I'm going to pause. Okay, so now similarly, we're going to have the same thing for actions. When the user clicks a symbol, we're going to have to say, okay, the user pressed the symbol. So we're going to have another method as well here, which will be public void symbol, and it will receive an int symbol, meaning that the symbol that the user is going to be working is going to be different. So now, when the user clicks a plus, we want to run symbol with the value 0, because 0 represents plus. When the user clicks a minus, we would want to run symbol, and we would go 1, and we would send so forth. So now if I continue with that, times, that is 2, symbol 2, and then last one, I haven't got a divide in here, so I would actually have to just change my grid layout here to be 5 rows, and then I would add a panel. That's why it's quite important to do this, to use your layouts properly, because if you use your layouts properly, it means that you can manipulate things like this quite easily. Whereas if my layouts weren't used properly, I would be battling to change if I needed to add something. Whereas mine was set up with specifically layouts, so to change it I just have to say, okay, I want 5 objects in here and add the 5th. Whereas if your layouts were done iffy, you would then battle to get this right. Alright, I forgot where I was. Oh yeah, now we got to get sort of work that. Now the equal, this would be the divided, which would be symbol 3. Okay, so now we've got all of our different signs done, 0, 1, 2, 3. Hopefully in the right order. Now, yeah, this is all generated correctly. Let me minimize that. We don't need to see all that. Now, in the symbol, what do we do when the user presses plus or when the user presses minus? Firstly, what's quite important is you want to actually perform the calculation that is at the top. So we had an add here. So what we would want to do is we'd want to perform this. Now, I don't even remember where I was displaying the answers, but I think I was displaying the answers in this top area here. But let's maybe make this a bit better. So label answer. So this is where you would display the answer. So for one, you're going to perform the action that was last done. So you're going to say ans is equal to ans. Now, here's the big thing. This is going to be an if statement. Now, an if, this is also new. So we have to look at what the action is. So if the action, now in Java, to compare something, you use two equals. So if the action was 0, which means it's a 1, sorry, it's a plus, that's addition, then we would want ans to equal to ans plus the display is an integer, so we need to actually convert that into an integer. So we can do that up here. So int num is equal to txt display dot get text, and we need to pass it into an integer. So do that. Remember, use your control spacebar. So integer dot parseInt, and then you would send through that value. So this is a parameter. Here we're using a parameter. So parseInt is a method, like symbol is a method, and symbol is a parameter. Like here we're sending through a parameter dot get text. So parameters are also very important. Now, if we're moving on from there, if I go ans is equal to ans plus num, now there's other options now, because if it's not just action 1, there's also other actions. So else if, so now I'm doing an else condition. So else, if this is not true, else we're doing a action is equal to 1, which is then subtract, or not way around curly brackets. And remember, keep your indenting, because if you indent, you can see what you're inside of. So now I'm going to say ans is equal to ans minus num. Okay, now something's gotten pear-shaped. Is my curly brackets, which is the program catching up. But you'll notice it's not picking up it being green. Green shows us that these are specific instances of a variable that we're talking about. I think it's just my computer freezing. Yeah, there we go. It's just my computer freezing. Alright, so else if open brackets action is equal to 2, then we know it's times, so then ans is equal to ans times num. Now, on the default action, in other words, if it's not plus, it's not minus, it's not times. In my case, I don't have any other functions, so then I know it's going to be divided by. Okay. So now we've performed the action that we were doing previously. But now the question is, what is the new action going to be? Now the question is, for equals, we technically could actually just program equals into this. Which is the problem is then you're actually starting from fresh, there is no action. So equals is slightly different, so we don't use this for equal sign. So now that we've got that, we now want to override our action, because now it depends on what the user's pressed. Now if the user, now we're going to have to do another if statement. Firstly, let's update our ans display. So let's our lbl ans is equal to now ans dot set text, sorry, dot set. So we're running the method and we're going to put the parameter of ans through to it, so that will display the answer. We are then also going to update our txt display dot set text. We're going to set that to blank, so we're going to clear it, and we're then going to also set our symbol. So now we're going to have to do another set of these if statements, and now I'm just going to copy. Now I'll do it from scratch. If symbol is equal to 0, sorry, yeah, is equal to 0, that means the user pressed add. We don't actually need to do that, because here we're sending through directly in our actions. We would send through the correct value on which action they're doing. So all I need to do is I need to say now my current action is going to equal to the symbol that the user pressed, semicolon. Now for the equal sign, we're going to do something slightly different. So now if the user presses equals, I'm going to say okay, so now interestingly, if you look at this, if the user presses equals, now this is where we're going to have to think about it, because if we look at it, if I press play now, can we run this? You'll see my calculator's up here, it's a bit smaller, actually maybe I should make the default a bit bigger. But if I go 200 plus 300, oh, I did get my text displayed in clear, minus 80. Okay, you see that this keeps on now adding on to here the display, so it's obviously I haven't cleared something. So let's take a look at, let's get this working properly before we move on to the equal sign. So if I look here and I go to my dot set text, okay, so into display is equal to blank. Our display is not equal to blank. So notice I cleared my set text but I didn't clear my display. So what I should have done is I should have said display equals blank. So I've cleared my display, and then this dot set text would equal to display. So I'm clearing my display and changing the text there. So let's see how that goes. So if I go and now 300 plus 200 minus 150 times 2. Now when we press equals, what should happen is it should now say, okay, perform that action, and then the default here would be blank. When they type in a new thing, it will just overwrite the answer. So that's a little bit tricky. So you're going to have to try work on how you would want to solve the equal sign. But the if statement, the plus, minus, times, etc., that works. And if I divide it by 2, and then I'll press equal, I want it to be 350. Now the question is, when you press equals, do you want to start it from scratch? In other words, the user will not have anything, but you'll have to code that in. So you'll have another symbol and say, okay, well, if the user pressed equals, it means that they've now finalized it, that you display the answer. But now the problem is, if you type in something, what is the next action going to do it? So if I now typed in, if I pressed equals and then I typed in 2,258, what would happen if I now pressed plus? So you see, at the moment, it was confused. But yeah, because the symbol with the equals, it can get a bit confusing with it. So we're going to have to make a choice on how we deal with those equal signs. So when the user presses equals, we want to display what's going on there. So for the equals, oops, it looks like my network is having a bit of issues at the moment. Thought I opened it from a local source. Yeah, I'm going to pause this video while the computer defreezes. Think about how you would get the equals to work, because I'm going to literally decide when the user presses equals, I am done with the calculation, I'll display a final output, and I'll start from the beginning again. That is my conclusion that I'm going to do. But you would have to make a choice on your side what you would want to do. Interestingly, yeah. Okay, mine just closed itself and completely gone. So what I would do there is, when the user pressed equals, I'll display to the user, this is the answer, and when the user presses the button again, I would have cleared the answer back to 0. So I would have set the text of the answer to be that, but the next time the user presses something, it would have defaulted back to 0 and to a plus sign, and then you would be sorted. Okay, and unfortunately, I've lost the network connectivity, so I lost that file in here. So that would be literally the way I've done that answer. I'll just clear everything back to 0. So I'll display the answer, but then I would have cleared everything back to 0. So the current answer would be back to 0 and plus. In other words, you display it, and then you just go set the symbol to be 0, and the answer to be 0, but after you've displayed. So the answer will still be showing at the top, but then you'll set the display there. So I unfortunately can't open it, because I've got to find it as well first. But yeah. Okay, I managed to find it, but it's unfortunately been corrupted. So when the user presses equals, I would run an equals method, and on that equals method, I would literally go here to my code, and I would go public void equals, and I would code an equals method. I would literally set my LBL. I would do the exact same thing as I did here with regards to my answer. So I would go up to here, and I would say set text is equal to answer, display, but now here's the big difference afterwards. After I've done that, I'm going to literally set the action to be 0. I'm going to set the answer to be 0, and that would be it. Unfortunately, I can't run this file anymore. With the network issue, it decided to be corrupt, so I can't run this file. So I'll have to actually transfer it through to there. So it's a good idea to work from a local drive rather than a network drive. Lesson learned. I knew this, but I still was trying my luck. Yeah, so end of the tutorial, part 2. Have a good one.